Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. My second 2023 NFL mock draft is here. We've done 2 rounds. And again, like doing 2 rounds because it gives us a chance to talk about some of the prospects that you might not always be seeing in the first round. And again, before we start, I just want to say thank you to you guys. Again, we say it time and time again, but the support you guys have shown truly means a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, you like talking the NFL draft, you like talking college football, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys a lot. Dill, let's get into it. I kicked this draft off with a bang, and this is a team that I'm hammering the table to make a move. The Carolina Panthers are trading up all the way from number 9 to number 1, and I empty the chamber. Whatever they need to get this done, I think they should do it, because when you look at this team is good enough to support a rookie quarterback, and there's not a better rookie quarterback in this 2023 NFL draft than Bryce Young.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is feels like there's 2 teams to me, the Colts and the Panthers, who
Yes.
both are in a similar position, albeit the Colts aren't nearly as good, I don't think, around it, but 2 teams that are in a position where they need to do whatever they can to get up there and get one of the 2 quarterbacks, and I don't think Houston's moving out, so feels like there's 1 quarterback up for grabs in a trade, and that pick, God, that's going to be so valuable.
And they're going to have to give up a lot, but it's just at some point, this Carolina Panthers team has eaten their vegetables for years now, just taking good draft picks and not really pulling the trigger on an elite quarterback in the draft, because there hasn't been that many great quarterbacks the last couple of drafts. Bryce Young is one of the more fun prospects to study. I think he has that it factor to make it happen in the NFL. And again, because they've eaten the vegetables, this is a team that can win a lot of games with a rookie quarterback, because I think it's one of the better rosters in the entire league. And when you look at that NFC South, it is there for the taking. The Saints have a ton of question marks. The Buccaneers have a ton of question marks. The Falcons, obviously, they always have
weak. It's like the weakest division in football by a mile.
And so make it happen. Trade up, get your franchise quarterback in Bryce Young. He's going to be protected. He has weapons. I think this is a phenomenal pick to round out the next 5 picks. CJ Stroud, our next quarterback, off the board to the Texans. The Cardinals get the best player in the 2023 NFL draft in Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, whatever it may be. The Colts stay at 4, get Will Levis, and then Will Anderson off the board at 5 to Seattle. And that would be a steal for Seattle, and it's seeming to be more of a realistic chance that 3 quarterbacks go in the first 5 picks, and Seattle has a chance at getting Jalen Carter or Will Anderson.
I mean, they're going to get one of them if the Carolina Panthers get up in that top 4, and because then you're guaranteed pretty much to have 3. And again, I think Will Levis is a brutal pick to be saddled with at 4, just because you can't miss with quarterback at 4. You see how far that sets teams back, like the Jets, like the Panthers have had their own issues with not being able to hit on rookies. You miss at that spot. You hamper yourself for years.
And I think Will Levis makes a lot of sense to the Colts, because he needs some work, he needs some development, and the Colts aren't a team that I think, even if they got Bryce Young at 1, I don't think that team's making the playoffs and competing for a Super Bowl immediately. So you draft Will Levis, you probably struggle for another year, but then you kind of start figuring out if Will Levis is that guy, which he certainly can be. And I get the film in 2022 wasn't great, but he has the traits at being an all-pro kind of quarterback. I mean, some silly arm talent. He obviously has a phenomenal body and is a good athlete. I think if he develops, it could be a good shot. And again, kind of a lottery ticket pick. Now, the next 5 picks, Myles Murphy, and Dill, I'll let you talk about him going to the Detroit Lions. Anthony Richardson. So you're seeing all the quarterbacks off the board, the first round quarterbacks, I should say, off the board in the first 7 picks. The Falcons go with Tyree Wilson. Quentin Johnson to the Bears, which I think would make a lot of sense. And they're going to get a boatload of draft capital. And then Devin Witherspoon, pick 10 to the Philadelphia Eagles.
And this is the one of the picks, is that Tyree Wilson, Myles Murphy argument. I personally don't really see how it's particularly close for Tyree Wilson, just because I feel like the point people try to make is, oh, Tyree Wilson's a freak athlete. Well, I don't know. Myles Murphy to me feels like one of the biggest freak athletes I've seen in college football in a while. I mean, to be that big, that smooth, that explosive, he's got it all, and he was obviously far more productive over the course of
his
3
yeah.
years in college than Tyree Wilson was. And I mean, I get it. Tyree Wilson, there's a chance he's gonna be special, but to me, like Miles Murphy, way lower floor, and I think the ceilings are pretty close because Miles Murphy's got what it takes to be an All-Pro. I think.
Yeah, two things on Miles Murphy. One, he's going to test at the combine and remind people why he should be a top 10 and arguably like a top 7 pick. And then two, people are forgetting the 2021 film of Miles Murphy. There's a reason he was mocked in the top 3 in almost any single NFL mock draft you saw this summer. The 2021 film was special. And similar to like Brian Brazee, those Clemson guys didn't really make that jump in 2022. But if you just trust Miles Murphy, you trust the athleticism. And then one other pick I want to talk about, Anthony Richardson going 7.
That feels almost inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's launching him up into the top 10. Obviously CBS Sports had him going number 1 overall, or at least one of their draft experts did. I don't know. Him and Will Levis are tough for me because both of them feel like I don't think you have any real sense of what you're getting because they're like Dr. and Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like both of them. They play really good one game and then they look like they don't even really belong starting in college the next. And that's my issue with that pick again. I just think it hampers you so much to miss it with those quarterbacks, and those two guys are way too. I think your downside is far too high to be taking them this high.
Yeah, but I don't think NFL GMs think that way. I think NFL GMs want to see the upside, and both.
And that could be true because, like, if they don't get anyone at quarterback,
look at all the teams that are paying for average quarterbacks. Like, you can't win Super Bowls with average quarterbacks. You win Super Bowls with a guy like Patty Mahomes, with a guy like Tom Brady, with a guy like Josh Allen or Joey Burrow. Go out and chase the upside, especially with quarterbacks, because, again, what are you stuck with a Kirk Cousins? You might make the playoffs. You ain't going to win a Super Bowl. So I think NFL GMs are going to gravitate to some of that high ceilings at that quarterback position. All right, next 5. Paris Johnson Jr. Tennessee obviously just released Taylor Lewan. It seems like a lock that they're going to take a tackle, and Paris Johnson Jr. is tackle 1 on my board. And that matchup makes too much sense. Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver 2 off the board to the Houston Texans. You know I love Jackson Smith-Njigba. Peter Skoronski to the Jets. He's not my offensive tackle 2, Broderick Jones is, but that makes a lot of sense for the Jets who just want an experience, they just want a solid offensive lineman. Ryan Branch sliding all the way down to 14. I think that's my favorite pick of the draft. And then Jordan Addison going 15 to the Green Bay Packers.
In Paris Johnson, he's such a lock to probably go to Titans, honestly. Yes. Just because how they want to play, they want to run, they want to
Makes so much sense.
They want an offensive lineman who can move people, and that's what he's done in college. And again, just a perfect fit, given especially the Taylor Lewan news. And then the interesting one is Peter Skoronski, because again, he's a guy who, certainly to me, feels like he has number 1 tackle. That's how I would do it, I think, at this point, just because I don't think you're missing. He's going to start in the NFL.
Whether it's in the interior, whether it's at tackle, he's going to be a good NFL player.
Because you see holes in, like, the Broderick Jones. You see holes in Paris Johnson's game where it's like, man, like the technique in the pass pro is just not wildly clean constantly, and they do give up more pressure than you'd want to see. I mean, Peter Skoronski, again, you argue the ceiling's a little lower, but he's so rock solid, and when you watch him, and then Brian Branch, he's nails. He's an incredible, and especially in a safety class, I think is awfully weak. I think he's put so much distance between himself and the next guy, which is probably Antonio Johnson. I think that if you're a team that wants a safety, you gotta.
I don't even call Brian Branch a safety. I call him a defensive player because he's just gonna do it all for whatever NFL team he goes to. And I always say that here, my selling point with Brian Branch is you want to have as much speed and coverage ability on the defense while also being able to stop the run. And Brian Branch is a perfect guy for pretty much any personnel to make that happen because he's a hammer when it comes to stopping the run in the tackle box, but also phenomenal coverage skills. And real quick about the Jordan Addison take, I see so many tight ends mocked to Green Bay at 15. I know they went wide receiver heavy. They didn't really use a high draft pick to address the wide receiver position, but they used them. But go get a really good wide receiver because I don't think any tight ends – I like this tight end class, but I don't see a tight end in this class that's worth a 15 overall pick. Moving on, to the next 5, we got Christian Gonzalez coming off the board to the Commanders. They seem like a lock to get one of these elite cornerbacks. Joey Porter Jr., you'll see this in a lot of my mocks. I really do like that fit. Eli Ricks at 18, so a run on the cornerback position. Broderick Jones at 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then the Seattle Seahawks getting our guy, Bryan Bresee.
And you look at, you obviously got 3 corners going, and this is the peak. This is where the corners probably should go, just because you don't. And this is I guess where it gets a little interesting to me is Christian Gonzalez in other years is probably a top 10 guy in my book, just because how good he is. I think to be that big, that physical, and be able to stick with guys, which
he's going to fly at the combine. He's got great long speed.
And that separates him from maybe the others, the Joey Porters. And Eli Ricks is a tough evaluation just because he was on the field so little, really throughout most of his college career. But again, when you saw him, he was really, really good. But you just look at it, you got like 4 or 5 corners who all kind of have an argument for cornerback number 1, if we're being honest. And certainly Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter are right up there. But I mean, how much worse are you getting if you end up with Emerson,
Emmanuel Forbes.
Emmanuel Forbes.
I want to talk about this cornerback class. I've spent a lot of time evaluating him. And Eli Ricks is a dude that you said it best. He did not play that much. The sample size isn't great, but he's a former 5-star prospect. He's got all the traits. I want to see his long speed at the combine. Honestly, reminds me of Sauce Gardner a lot and how smooth he is for the length that he has. And then Sauce Gardner, what was the big question mark he had? Does he have that long speed to deal with the wide receivers at the next level? I have similar questions to Eli Ricks. If he can answer those at the combine, at the pro day, I really do like Eli Ricks. Then Broderick Jones, the Bucs are just eating their vegetables. You don't really know what they're going to do. Go get one of the best players on the board in Broderick Jones. And then the Seattle Seahawks. Like, Pete Carroll loves addressing the defensive line with traits. I mean, there's not a more traitsy guy on the defensive line, especially on that interior, than a guy like Bryan Bresee. So I think that makes a lot of sense as well. Moving on to the next couple picks, the Miami Dolphins, forfeited pick. Zay Flowers to the Chargers. That makes a lot of sense, and especially with those top 3 wide receivers. Like, Dill, we talk about the wide receiver ranks a lot. I mean, Quentin Johnson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jordan Addison, I think, are in that tier 1. And then when you drop down, you have guys like Zay Flowers. You have guys like Josh Downs, who are probably in that tier 2. Lucas Van Ness, growing on me the more and more film I get on him. Emmanuel Forbes, 23 to the Vikings. Antonio Johnson, 24 to the Jags, which I almost felt like I should have went tight end. And then John Michael Schmitz at 25 to the Giants. And I know the Giants fans are going to be pissed, but I don't think Josh Downs is the answer. You drafted Wan'Dale Robinson last year. I think he's going to be really good. But in terms of an wide receiver, a wide receiver 1 on the boundary, like, there's not really any guys, if Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnson are off the board, that I really want to take at that 25th overall pick. So go get one of the best players in this draft class. The John Michael Schmitz. He's the Creed Humphrey of 2020's draft. I love him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're going to want to run it, obviously. I don't think they're going to want Daniel Jones dropping back as many times as would validate picking a wide receiver at this, because right here you're reaching badly for a wide receiver, I would say, especially given what they need, which you're right, is more of a boundary guy, because Wan'Dale Robinson is their slot receiver, if you will. So I will say they maybe could think tight end here, I would think, because if they have a real weapon at tight end, that might help them. But even that, I like Musgrave a lot, but I mean, John Michael Schmitz is really, really good, and that's a team that wants to run it. And then just looking back a little bit, Lucas Van Ness he's like a fascinating prospect.
He really is.
I really don't know what to make of, because, again, like, not wildly productive on the field, not on the field as much as I think everyone thought he should have been. But there's certainly some traits of being just big, athletic, and just so strong.
I see a lot of George Karlaftis in his game. Just like he ain't gonna win with like burst and bend around the edge, but he goes right through tackles. He's really good on those stunts. The speed to power conversion is really good. And I hate to use that like cliche term, but he's really, really strong hands. So I think he's gonna translate at some level to the next level. Next 5 picks: Anton Harrison going to the Cowboys. Dale, one of your favorite tackles. Bijan Robinson going to the Bills. Like, it almost
gotta find something there. You got to find something for the Bills, because God, they rely so much on Josh Allen.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is like, Bills fans wanted to be able to establish the run, and you don't want to be running Josh Allen 12 times a game in the regular season.
Even
I
more
get
so, he hit some plays. Like, hit some home runs that aren't Josh.
If he has to use his legs in the playoffs, I'm okay with it, but I don't want Josh Allen continuing to run the ball as much as he had to do. Kalijah Kancey to the Bengals, a really intriguing prospect who you take a look at Kalijah Kancey, like there's so much to like about his game. A 22.7 pass rush win rate. I mean, he's lining up on the interior a lot. 63 snaps from the A gap, 358 from the B gap, and he's creating a lot of pressure. I get the big question mark is he's 6 foot, 280 pounds, but the film is phenomenal. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, one of our favorite players. And we'll just round out this first-round draft with Nolan Smith to the Eagles. They just get one of the best players available. And then Dalton Kincaid to the Kansas City Chiefs.
And just looking back on it, that Anton Harrison's a good fit for the Cowboys just
really
because he'll roll right in and be La'el Collins. He'll just be the next version of him. I think they're very similar guys, big physical tackles who are not going to be a liability in pass pro given how big they are. And again, I don't know that Anton Harrison's an elite athlete, but he's strong enough and he makes it work. He's obviously super productive at Oklahoma, not giving up a whole lot. And then the one pick here that I just Kalijah Kancey, I just don't see the way you see it. I think when you watch him, he's able to win a lot with athleticism is honestly what gets it done for him in the inside. And I think he gets away with it in college because he's powerful enough to give average college interior offensive lineman power with or problems with his power. But I don't think he's got NFL power. And then I don't think you can just be an athlete on the inside in the pros. You got to have more than that. I mean, and again, the natural comparison is going to be like, oh, well, what about guys like Aaron Donald who figure it out? It's like, A, he's a unicorn and we'll never see anyone like him again. B, you
similar stories though.
Running through guys. You would see him running through guys in college. You don't really see that from Kalijah Kancey, I don't think.
But at some point, and you're like the poster boy for this. Like, trust the football player.
No, because that's what you don't run. You're just trusting stats.
I'm not trusting stats.
You're not only, but like, I think there's a difference between being able to test guys in college with power and then just dominate them athletically versus being able to present a real challenge to big, powerful offensive linemen in the NFL. And I'm not sure he's got that type of explosiveness and power in him to push a pro tackler or pro guard around. And I think if he can't do that, I'm not sure how his game holds up exactly.
That rounds out. And one thing, Dalton Kincaid, that's a fun one. Travis Kelce obviously getting up there. I'm not telling you Travis Kelce's done. And Felix Anudike-Uzomah.
Also, we best not sleep on Nolan Smith because Nolan Smith is a guy who he didn't play all year or for a fair amount of the year because he's packed. Yeah. But it's like you go back and you like kind of jog your memory against teams like Missouri and especially Oregon. You saw a guy, really refined pass rusher, probably not the elite athlete that or elite traits maybe is how I'll say it that Tyree Wilson has or a Miles Murphy or Will Anderson, but a really clean pass rusher, a good athlete, plays really, really hard and plays really well in the run, just being active. And that matters when you're taking a guy here.
Getting into the second round, we'll speed through these picks a little bit more here. DeJuan Jones coming off the board at pick 32 to the Steelers. Michael Mayer going to the Houston Texans. Keely Ringo, who PFF is just sleeping on, going to the Arizona Cardinals. Josh Downs to the Colts, and then Will McDonald to the Los Angeles Rams. Dale, what picks stand out here?
DeJuan Jones, and he's a guy who's got me. I don't know what to think.
He's got you in a blender.
Because when you watch him play, it's like there's some very serious technical flaws. Like, again, and I harp on it, but you watch him crossing his feet on pass sets. I've never seen a guy play really good football crossing their feet. It's like the one thing they teach you not to do because you have no power, no strength, and no balance when your feet are crossed. But then you watch him, and he's swallowing guys at the college level and swallowing guys on Michigan and Penn State and in the good teams they play, and he's just eating them up. Now, I will say I still have major questions because it's the end of the day. There's a reason they teach you not to do some of the things he does, but he He does a really good job getting right on guys. He doesn't like force himself to kick slide.
What I want to push back on is you like treat DeJuan Jones like he needs to be like a standard tackle. Like he is 6'8", 380 pounds. He's not going to be a standard tackle. And so it's going to look a little different. The most impressive, like he might be the guy moved up the most after the Senior Bowl because those are the reps that test your athleticism, test your ability to play in space, and designed to kind of have the offensive tackle lose. He didn't lose a single rep. And like you said, 8 guys up. Michael Mayer going off the board again. Honestly, one of the other pick that kind of stands out to me is Keely Ringo, who has all the traits in the world, just really struggles in man coverage, and that's something we've harped on. If he's in a scheme where you're not asking him to play sticky man and play more zone and let his athleticism and keep his eyes on the quarterback and go play the football, I think Keely Ringo is going to be a really, really good NFL cornerback. And then Will McDonald, one of my other favorite guys, just one of the best pure pass rushers in this class. And Iowa State did not favor him in terms of getting after the quarterback, but he got it done a multitude of times on the film. Seattle Seahawks with another one of my favorite picks here, Osiris Torrance falling to 37, Deontay Banks from Maryland going 38 to the Raiders, Steve Avila to TCU to the Bears, or from TCU to the Bears, and then Cam Smith going 40 to the New Orleans Saints. Dale, what player here stands out?
The one that I don't really see now, and I know you and Rock really like him now, but Deontay Banks, I don't think
didn't play much.
He's not in this conversation of these top dogs at corner. And I get you're not.
That was weird to me.
And you're not.
All of a sudden, we're talking Deontay Banks top 20.
No, and that's like he's not wildly sticky. He just doesn't pop off. I mean, you got guys like Gonzalez, Porter, Ricks. When you see them play, you're like, oh man, like these guys can't get away from them. They're all over people. I mean, I'm personally like Clark Phillips, Jalen Jones, those guys, all I have quite a bit higher than Deontay Banks. So that one's a little surprising. And I don't know if Rock off poisoned the well on you a little bit. And maybe
he might have. And the terms of I'm seeing Deontay Banks in the top 20 like consistently now, like all of a sudden. Another guy, Cam Smith, you saw him start as like a top 15 prospect, slowly moving his way down the board. And again, I think that has to deal with a lot of good cornerbacks in this class. And also, like, when you get into his film, it's not as impressive. And I start having question marks about how athletic he actually is. Going on in this draft, Carl Brooks, one of my favorite prospects. This is why I love doing 2-round mocks. You won't see Carl Brooks in the first round, but I think this guy has a ton of juice. You got Mozzie Smith going to the Browns. They need help stopping the run. Mozzie Smith, although gets moved around a little more than you would like in some of the games, really good at getting off blocks and making tackles. Trenton Simpson betting on the trace. The New York Jets are at 43. Tank Dell, 44 to the Falcons. And then your boy, Luke Musgrave, heading off the board at 45. And that's where you're seeing him go a lot in the first round. 15 overall to the Packers. Packers wait, get him here at 45.
Yeah, and the one thing with Mozzie Smith, he's a guy, it felt like he struggled when teams made him move sideline to sideline. At the end of the day, he's really good playing guys straight up. I mean, I think he's gotten much better as a pass rusher and will continue to develop. But when you get him in a heavy zone scheme where you're running him around sideline to sideline, that's where you saw some moments like, yeesh, like why is he 10 yards back on a base block with a center? Like in that.
Time out. We're talking Carl Brooks here. I mean, Carl Brooks, like you kind of skipped over my guy, and I'm a little pissed about it, to be quite frank. Carl Brooks is like one of the weirdest prospects in this class. You look at his height and weight. He's 6'4". He's 300 pounds. Look at his snap count. I mean, this dude was playing outside. He was playing edge at Bowling Green. He had 50 hurries on the season. And again, a pass rush win rate of 23%. Like this dude on film. And the big question you had is he's going against MAC guys. And the film was much more impressive when he's going up against MAC offense linemen than it was when he was going up against Power 5 guys. But he goes down to the Senior Bowl and kind of continues to dominate. And I think he's a guy that is super explosive off the line of scrimmage, has some of the strongest hands you'll see in this class, and it's rare. And he's going to play on the inside. I just don't see him playing edge. Bowling Green put him on the edge because he's the best player on the field. On the inside, it's really rare to have elite pass rush ability. Carl Brooks has the burst and bend from the inside to provide teams that. I think Carl Brooks might slip out of the first round because he's coming from Bowling Green, but I think he could be really, really good in the NFL.
No, I wouldn't disagree with you. That was definitely not meant as a shot at Carl Brooks because I'm with you. I think he is again, the issue is you didn't get to see a ton of game tape against pseudo NFL guys, at least, because again, you look at the Mac, he'd win every rep basically, and it's just like you couldn't tell if he was just really good,
He's
which
so good.
is part of it, or if the competition just wasn't quite there. But again, you look at the traits to be that athletic as a 300-pounder, like you don't see that much.
Two other guys, a Tank Dell, obviously undersized, but separates. He just separates, and I think there's a spot in the NFL for a guy who can get open. And then Luke Musgrave, your guy, like the ultimate tight end with the size and speed and the matchup nightmare, especially over the middle of the field. The Patriots with another one of those interesting picks in Kayshon Boutte. We'll go back to that, but we have Andrew Vore. He's one of my personal favorites. He'll probably be a top 50 guy on my board going to the Commanders. Jack Campbell to Detroit, another one of my favorite fits. Dion Henley to Washington State, and then the Bucs taking their shot at quarterback, not in the first round, but in the second with Hendon Hooker. Dill, pick a player. Who do you like the most here?
Well, the interesting one is Kayshon Boutte, because when we came into this year, he was very much in the conversation and number one draft eligible wideout, and then obviously didn't seem to get along with Brian Kelly. The year he wasn't wildly productive. It looked like guys like Malik Neighbors kind of surpassed him as the number one dude at LSU. But man, you go back to last year, there were some moments in where he just looks like a strong wideout, runs good routes, and makes it happen after the catch, which he's a tough one for me because this year it just like he almost didn't look drafted.
Now, the thing that's going to help Kayshon Boutte is he's like, you look at this wide receiver group, it's a lot of guys that are kind of pigeonholed to the slot, like Josh Downs, Tank Dell, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Zay Flowers might be in that discussion too. In terms of boundary, bigger wide receivers who can be wide receiver one, there's not that many. Kayshon Boutte is one of those guys, and so I think that might help his draft stock, and I'm interested to see how he tests at the combine because, again, struggled with injuries. You didn't see much of him, but if he can show some of those elite traits that NFL GMs and scouting departments love, I think you could find him up there. And then Jack Campbell makes a lot of sense to Detroit. I think they need another backer. Jack Campbell, probably the best film of a backer. Then Dion Henley, a guy that I've just gotten into his film more recently, popped at the Senior Bowl. He's like the ultimate NFL linebacker. He's really good in space. A little bit undersized, but he doesn't play undersized. And he's really, really good covering. That was kind of the thing that had him stand out at the Senior Bowl. So when you get a guy who's good in space, but also plays extremely physical, I think he's going to be a very, very good.
My only issue with him is sometimes against the really good teams, you didn't see him all around the field making a ton of plays, which is frankly probably a criticism you can make against a lot of guys. I mean, you look at his season stats, 54 tackles, solo tackles, 77.
74. Let's check that.
Solo tackles, it's 54. And I don't know what his combined is. You get like pile dive tackles, whatever. But
I don't think
that's 77th in the country. That's not crazy productive. And that's the problem with a whole lot of these linebackers.
Yeah. This linebacker group's not good.
Noah Sewell, like you got guys who they flash and you see really good moments, but then you see just prolonged stretches and not making a ton of tackles. Then you flick on Jack Campbell. He's all over the field, making a zillion tackles. Dog. And I get it. People, he's going to run a 4.8.
We'll see. I can't wait to see what he runs. And also, I don't really care to see what he runs because he's also very good in coverage as well. And he had the best film. I mean, Trent Simpson, I think, unarguably has the highest ceiling as a linebacker. And that might be the reason why he's linebacker one. But Jack Campbell, man, his film is really, really good. And then Hendon Hooker, like, take your shot at him. He could be starting quarterback in the NFL. Moving on. The Seattle Seahawks, I think they need another wide receiver. You have a guy like Jalen Hyatt falling to you at 51. Go ahead and take him. Eric Gray, that's going to generate a lot of buzz, Dill. I'm interested to hear your takes on that. Darnell Wright to the Chargers. Darnell Washington to the Bears. And then A.T. Perry, my guy, going 55 to the Lions. Dill, pick a player here.
I mean, I'm a massive Jalen Hyatt fan. I think he's going to do big things in the league. Yeah, you criticize him for being like he has one thing. He's got the deep ball, but I don't think you catch that many passes for that many yards in college football. And again, we've talked about this. I am kind of interested to see what he can do against press man coverage because you're right. He is a little on the slender side.
And you didn't see it.
You didn't see it because they were stacking. They stack wideouts every play. And he always dealt with a little bit more off coverage, but God, he was toasting guys. People couldn't really keep up with him. So at the end of the day, you got that. There's something special there, and I think right around here is a good place to take him.
And then the other guy I want to talk about, my guy Darnell Washington. A.T. Perry is a touchdown catcher. He's a bigger wide receiver, which I think the Lions could use. But Darnell Washington, what do the Bears want to do? They want to make it easy on Justin Fields. They want to be able to run the ball and obviously use Justin Fields' legs. Darnell Washington seems to be a perfect fit. You have Cole Kmet, who's going to be more of your pass catching tight end. Darnell Washington, 6'7", 270 pounds. These 6 offensive linemen on this team. He's going to be able to help the run game and also, I think, be a little bit more productive in the pass catching department than I think a lot of people give him credit for if he wasn't sitting behind Brock Bowers at Georgia. 56, Jaden Reed to the Jags, giving Trevor Lawrence a little extra juice. Michael Wilson, who I want to talk about at 57, going to the Giants. They missed out on their wide receiver in the first round. They go get him in the second. Moro Ojomo, one of my favorite guys in this class, going 58 to the Cowboys. Siaki Ika going to the Bills. I love that pick for the Bills. And then Tyreek Stevenson off the board to the Bengals at 60.
Yeah, and the one that jumps out to me is like Michael Wilson. I'm not 100% sure what you see in his game to say what?
Senior Bowl. I mean, he's barely played four games. He's struggled with injury pretty much his whole career at Stanford. But this dude, like, you take a look at his size. He's 6'2", 210 pounds. He has great size for that wide receiver position, but he's so smooth. Like, nothing really pops out. He's not the biggest. He's not the fastest vertically or straight line speed. But, man, his releases off the line of scrimmage, when you look at why wide receivers are winning in the NFL, it's because they're smooth and can create separation quickly. I think that's what Michael Wilson will be able to do when he gets to the NFL. And I think he's got some serious like plus side wide receiver 2, low side wide receiver 1 chops in the NFL.
And then the last one is Tyreek Stevenson. He's a guy I think I was sleeping on. I think I was sleeping on him because, like, I started to see, after the Senior Bowl, you start seeing his name pop back up. But, man, at Miami, he was, like, pretty good. I mean, big, physical corner. I think that it means put him in a press man scheme. I think he's going to be really productive. Yes. Obviously, it doesn't mind tackling and doing some of those other things. So, he's a guy I thought he did a really good job against Texas A&M covering up some smaller, shiftier wideouts who you would think give a bigger guy like him maybe some issues just athletically challenging him, but I thought he did a really good job throughout most of that game.
Yeah, and then my last guy I want to touch on, Moro Ojomo from Texas. He's a little bit of a weird prospect because he plays a lot on the inside. He's 6'3", 280. I think he's a little heavier than that.
That 281 doesn't feel right.
But he don't play. Even if he is 281, he does not play 281. He's phenomenal against the run. But again, another one of those guys from the inside that gives you that plus pass rush ability. That is something I think the NFL is going to increasingly value, as opposed to the guys who can't really give you much pass rush and more of just kind of a two-gap or run stuffer. Moro Ojomo, I think, is going to be up on people's boards. And then to round out this draft, I didn't pick Kansas City's yet because I wanted to show you guys who I kind of wasn't as high on. Keanu Benton going to the Bears, and then Cody Mock. I think this makes a lot of sense going to the Philadelphia Eagles, probably playing on that interior offense line. Now, before we round out, we'll make the pick for the Chiefs, but I kind of wanted to talk about some prospects that I wasn't as high on. And one is Andre Carter. I mean, this is a dude that was really productive in 2021, but just is not strong enough playing the NFL yet. But you're going to draft him. You have to put some weight on the frame. And again, at Army, you're not allowed to get all massive because you have to do all the basic training stuff that they are required to do. But he just is strong. And you saw at the Senior Bowl, like when he tried to get into elite tackles' bodies, he hit a brick wall and he wasn't strong enough.
People really jumping on him at the Senior Bowl. I feel like it's like a lot of Twitter was just really getting after him.
I mean, some of those reps though were just like he looked outmatched physically. And he just wasn't strong enough. He plays like that super weird, like wide 9 at times and uses that speed and length. But I just don't see that translate to the NFL until he gets a little bit stronger. BJ Ojulari, a guy that you like the traits, but just simply not good enough. And when you look at this edge class and the depth it has, like I have guys like Zach Harris and KJ Henry over BJ Ojulari. Tuli Pelotu, another guy that a lot of people like, but just
really productive. But then you watch the tape and it's like a little hot. Like you almost wonder how, because it's not popping off. Not a great athlete. And I think that's the thing. He is a bigger dude, but I feel like that I don't know if that's going to work in college or in the pros like it did in college. And I don't
And
know.
then the last guy I want to talk, Keon White probably should have had him in there at some point, to be honest with you. But Jahmyr Gibbs, in a running back class that is just so deep, I just don't like Jahmyr Gibbs. I sent it to you and Rock on Instagram. Like he's gonna run a 14. Jahmyr Gibbs ain't running no 4.2. Like he doesn't have that straight line speed. And to be honest, like the Alvin Kamara comps, he doesn't have that contact balance. He's not as big as Alvin Kamara. He's a guy that I would kind of comp more to James Cook. And James Cook in this draft class, with how good these running backs are, probably wouldn't be going in the second round. And so I have Jahmyr Gibbs falling. I took Eric Gray because I like Eric Gray and I kind of wanted to talk about him. But again, he's another one of those guys that I just don't think is worth a second round pick, especially with all the running backs that are available in this 2023 class. Again, that's 35 minutes, so we want to close it out. And appreciate
all the pick.
Let's the Kansas City Chiefs. Hey, let's go get Keon White. I mean, I said I should have worked him in there. Keon White.
You don't feel like you're just doubling up on Karlaftis a little bit here? Like, well, are they different players in any way? I will say Frank Clark is aging a little bit, and he's still a tank. But if you do want to reload it for the next years, but I don't know.
Oh boy,
that might be the move.
Yeah, we're gonna do Devin A. Chain, get the speed on the Chiefs. That might not be it, especially when I talked about like this running back class. I don't know if Devin A. Chain will go that high, but again, teams are going to value that speed that he brings to the table, and Devin A. Chain has that in bunches. Again, now we'll close it out again. Appreciate the support you guys have shown the channel. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.